In the Pearl of the Altmark, the tranquil air spa town of Arendsee, we visit the team of Metallbau Herbst. With its 30 employees, this family business has been producing windows, doors, façades, and fire protection elements made of glass and aluminium for over 30 years. The metal construction company has a satisfied customer base, which actively promotes the team both in the region and online. Clearly, Metallbau Herbst is doing a lot of things right. They recognise the value of digital support for more flexible and efficient planning early on, and introduced Logikal more than 20 years ago. For someone who has benefited from the advantages of digital manufacturing for so long, it was only obvious to also digitise the workshop processes about 2 years ago and bring Logikal MES, Logikal's little brother, into the company. Although it's not that little, we took a closer look at it. This is the area where everything starts. This is where the profiles arrive, delivered by our profile suppliers along with the accessories and fittings. They are prepared here for production. The entire commissioning takes place here. Then, of course, the cutting process follows. Here the employee receives the data from the office and can start production. The profiles are placed, then automatically fed into the machine. At the back they are stacked and then sorted into the storage system. Storage and compartments. This is also a MES approach, where the next employees can check the system to see which trolleys and compartments are occupied, where specific positions are stored. At that moment, they can retrieve the materials. Ultimately, the terminals are designed so that multiple employees working in the hall can select individual work steps and processes from the system at their machines and continue working on them. We work with 8 MES workstations. But it is also important, if we do not involve all employees, the acceptance won't be there. If not everyone has their own workstation with access to their data, the system will not work in the company. I've heard from others who implemented it half-heartedly, only setting up 2 or 3 workstations, and their employees never really accepted it. Then they wonder why it doesn't work. MES is an industry standard. From the hall next door, the trolleys come over and are parked here. Then the employee selects the corresponding position they want to process, checks in which trolley and compartment the necessary profiles are stored for further processing, and prepares them accordingly. This is where all the sealing components, glass strips and final locking elements are added. If it's a door, the latch plates are installed here. There are additional workstations here where the system displays which fittings still need to be installed in the door, which seals are needed and which glass strips are required. All of this happens here. In the office, all production steps are not only planned with Logikal, but during the manufacturing process, they are also consolidated, monitored, and adjusted if necessary via the MES Workshop Manager portal. Oliver Bratch showed us this in more detail. We are now here in the Workshop Manager portal, where you can see various things. These are, first of all, our storage units, which we have, where I can check where each profile is stored in which compartment. I can see which compartment is occupied and to what percentage. I can also see, okay, the profile is still there for that particular order. If there are any questions, I can directly ask my colleagues why it is still there or why it hasn't arrived yet. Regarding clarity, thanks to MES, we have become much more structured because we have to carefully consider how we work. As a result, even in the planning phase, we have become a bit more precise, in my opinion. And also with work orders, it is now the case that we have significantly fewer inquiries. Once the system was set up, we ran a few test runs. Then we also involved the employees and addressed their questions as well as any concerns they had, or initially dispelled any doubts, showing that it's not all bad. Instead, it actually moves us forward and adds value. That we with digitalisation can continue to progress, that we can show, especially in the trades, that we are capable and even inspire young people to enter the trades. To counteract the skilled labour shortage in the industry, that is also what the team at Metallbau Herbst wants to achieve with digital tools. Consistently investing in its own digital transformation. A commitment that, due to its societal relevance, has been supported with funding from the state of Saxony-Anhalt and the EU. And what does it look like in a production facility where processes have been digitised? What were the original expectations from implementing a production control system? And can MES fulfill these expectations? Through the use of MES from Orga data, we have noticed that processes are running more smoothly in some areas. We had already worked out all these things analog and were already at a point where we wanted to represent everything digitally. So it made a lot of sense to introduce this system. And through this, we have also noticed, as mentioned, that processes run more smoothly and we are moving away from paper-based production. We now prepare everything in the office and it is then digitally transferred to the workstations where the entire process is handled digitally and flows back to the office. So we have no data loss and all necessary data is digitally available at each workstation. In terms of quality, I think this is a huge benefit for us, and in terms of production speed, everything runs much faster. We no longer have to search for paper documents that are needed for projects or specific tasks. And another important point, the data required for CE marking and for internal production control is now available at the push of a button, since it is automatically generated within the process. These are the requirements we established for our in-house production control and CE certification. And MES ensures that these aspects are continuously monitored and automatically generated at the end of the process. How was the transition? I imagine it was quite complicated. Some people still wanted to work with paper, while others, the early adopters, embraced digital right away. How did you handle that shift to digital? I had a little trick. I told my employees, and we coordinated this a bit with others at the time, including the trainers who conducted the Orga data training sessions. I said, you can go ahead and tell everyone that we're one of the last companies that hasn't implemented Logikal MES yet. It's about time we join in. And suddenly, acceptance was there very quickly. With over 20 years of experience, this family business is fully committed to innovation. And even though every new system requires a willingness to learn, everyone understands that the time savings achieved are worth it and free up capacity for other tasks. One thing is clear, the next generation of metal workers will only join a modern company. So, we take a closer look. We started with software back then from the system provider, but wanted to keep it open for all other systems. There can always be something, either the product that needs to be offered on the market cannot be supplied by the system provider, so another system house is needed. That's why we said we wanted to use it while keeping things open. At that time, there were several software options or solutions available on the market, so we had already decided on Orgadata more than 20 years ago. And since then, let's say, we have been very satisfied. What challenges are there currently? We already talked about it earlier, skilled labour shortage, and how does being well positioned digitally help with that? Well, we have to make sure that we can motivate our next generation of skilled workers, and digitalisation is already a kind of motivation. Young people today, or apprentices whom we train, grow up differently than our generation. They are using tablets and are more digital. They have a different approach, thinking, just try it out, things don't break that easily. Where we would approach things differently, it's completely different for them. They are more tech-savvy and simply try things out. And they are quickly convinced that it brings real benefits. We should adapt to that. And then young people can also be motivated for craftsmanship. We're talking about digitalisation in craftsmanship, digitalisation in window and facade construction. This also includes marketing, online marketing, or using digital tools. Are you active on social media? Well, we are on Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Those are the different platforms we use. That the latest tool from Orgadata will bring advantages in operations, the team is convinced, based on their experience with Logikal and Logikal MES. That's why they immediately seized the opportunity when they learned about the advantages of SimplyTag during their visit to BAU 2023. Employee Suzanne Kleber knows the details, as she was the first employee to be trained in SimplyTag. How is this actually for the customer? How should the customer imagine communicating with us, and what does this mean? How do we register them, or how does the process work?
Well, we have the tag with our logo and a QR code, and in our workshop, it is attached when the element is built. The customer receives this exact QR code, which is placed on the element in a not-so-visible spot. During handover, the user is simply shown where the tag is located and what they can do with it. They simply take their phone or tablet with a camera and internet access, scan the code, and are automatically directed to the SimplyTag page, where they can find our customer details, our phone number, and our website. They can see who installed the element, who they need to contact, and can also directly report an issue or a damage case, call us, or get in touch with us. Some data is transferred, which we can define ourselves. Only the most important details for them, so it doesn't get confusing. And we get complete access to the work order. We can see all hardware parts, glass panes, all measurements, all lock data. So we can see everything. The customer, however, initially sees the CE marking. That's always the starting point, followed by the performance declaration and our details as the manufacturer, including our contact information.
With SimplyTag, the team at Metallbau Herbst now has another strong asset for the future, one that simplifies processes even after production for both repairs and maintenance, making things easier for everyone. Another investment in a sustainably operating company, for customer loyalty and satisfied employees. Throughout the company, everyone is convinced this investment will pay off as well.